Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of The Power of Google. Today, we are going to be looking into the gender pay gap, because this seems to be a controversial point of discussion. The gender pay gap. Explained, sure. And then, what is it, like 77 cents to the dollar study? Alright. Okay. Nationalpartnership.org, alright. Okay. Google Scholar. And let's try looking there. Gender pay gap. The US gender, but this is 1990s. Alright, well, let's go. We've got here. Alright, we'll start here. The gender pay gap myth versus fact. Pay gap is closing fast. Okay. The UN reported that the worldwide wage gap will take 70 years. Okay, but I'm not talking about worldwide here. Sorry, let me indicate. I'm only talking about the US, okay? Other countries, no offense to other countries are very fucked. By comparing differences in annual earnings between men and women, we find that there's about a 23-cent difference per dollar, according to the Census Bureau. Alright, here's the thing about statistics. They can be manipulated, alright? That's, okay. That's not accurate. Alright, we'll probably see in these other tabs why. Here's the supposed wage gap, the amount of cents between, right? Nationally, the median annual pay for a woman who holds a full-time job, year-round job, is $45,097, while the median annual pay for a man who holds a full-time job is $55,291. This means that there's a gap of 10,194, right? This persistent, pervasive wage gap is driven in part by gender and racial discrimination, workplace harassment, job segregation, and a lack of workplace policies that support family caregiving, which is still mostly performed by women. Blah, 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 right? So it's saying it's because of discrimination, right? That's what this article says. Let's keep going. Yeah, here we go. The first thing you can do to protect yourself against misusing the 77 cent statistics is simple. Listen carefully. Slight differences in wording can drastically alter the accuracy of a claim about the wage gap. This is why language is important, and the language that you use is crucial. Here's what we mean. Here we go. Okay, the 77-cent figure, derived from a federal government measure, does not apply to men and women who do the same job. Instead, it refers to the average disparity between what men and women earn, period. Sorry, that might have been a little cut off. Now, the details. It tracks annual wages. The census tracks annual wages for all male and female workers, regardless of occupation. Okay? Regardless of occupation. So, it's not factoring in for your job, which makes no sense. Like, literally no sense. So anyway, Because it's illegal to pay. Oh, god damn it! Fuck you, Washington Post. All right, Harvard study: gender pay gap explained entirely by work choices of men and women. Here we go. The gender wage gap is as real as unicorns and has been killed more times than Michael Myers. All right, that should summarize this episode for anybody watching that's wondering about the pay gap. I kind of want to quote this in the description. All right. Study gender pay gap is worse than thought. Studies show women actually earn half the income of men. NBC announced recently, which found that women's income was 51% less than men's earnings. Yes. All right, peace out. Go to class. That's exactly what it is. Okay, according to Virus Samtastic, the gender pay gap is just a very bold statement that doesn't include all variants. It's just a paradox. Thank you very much for weighing in. Now, here we go. There are differences in the type of work men and women do, which bears on their earnings. BLS data shows that in 2017, 94% of child daycare services workers were female, the highest percentage of any category, and that the mean annual wage of child care workers was $23,760. By contrast, just 2.9% of the workers in logging were women, the lowest share of any category, and the mean annual wage here was $42,310. The Institute for Women's Policy Research study fails to account for these differences. It's like they never learned how to do a study or properly write one up, because that's super important. Indeed, its authors are airily dismissive of analysis that takes into account occupational differences or so-called women's choices. Its headline claim is that the 80 cents figure is wrong. In fact, women earn more like 49 cents for each dollar a man earns. The authors, Stefan J. Rose and Heidi I. Hartman, or L maybe, listed in that order because that is how it is presented on the cover of the report, not because of sexism. Okay, oh, it's Stephen. Okay, there we go. Arrive at this conclusion by taking a longitudinal data set from 2001 to 2015 and measuring average, again, here it comes, average annual earnings across the period for people who worked any amount, all right, any amount during any of these years, and then comparing the overall averages for male and female workers, as well as for different subsets of men and women. Workers who were employed full-time for the entire 15-year period are lumped in with those who worked only part-time or occasionally. So that means that if somebody works part-time or occasionally, they're still lumped in with the person who's working full-time. So obviously their wage is going to be different. If you work part-time, you're going to make less, or if you work occasionally, you're going to make less than if you're working full-time. And obviously the jobs matter, you know, what kind of job you have. Rather than starting with an observation, that 80-cent statistic, and examining possible causes, Hartman and Rose have simply assumed a cause, rampant sexism, and carried out a slightly grander version of the back of a cigarette box calculation to support it. All right, here we go. There's a new study out of Harvard. Fortunately, a new study by Valentin Bolotny and Natalia Emanuel of Harvard University, thank you both, again, listed in that order just because that's how they're presented in the paper, it does just this. All right, let's find out. They look at data from the Massachusetts Bay Transportation Authority. This is a union shop with uniform hourly wages where men and women adhere to the same rules and receive the same benefits. Workers are promoted on the basis of seniority rather than performance, and male and female workers of the same seniority have the same choices for scheduling, routes, vacation, and overtime. There's almost no scope here for a sexist boss to favor men over women. Alrighty. And yet, even here, Emanuel and Bolotny find that female train and bus operators earn less than their male counterparts. From this observation, they go looking for possible causes, examining time cards and scheduling from 2011 to 2017, and factoring in sex, age, date of hire, tenure, and whether an employee was married or had dependents. These are all independent variables, okay? Science time. These are all independent variables that may affect the dependent variable, which is how much money they make. Here we go. Here are the findings. Male train and bus drivers worked about 83% more overtime than their female colleagues and were twice as likely to accept an overtime shift, which pays time and a half, which for anybody watching, time and a half means if you work let's say 10 hours, you're getting paid for 15 hours worth of work on short notice, and that around twice as many women as men never took overtime. The male workers took 48% fewer unpaid hours off under the Family Medical Leave Act each year. Female workers were more likely to take less desirable routes if it meant working fewer nights, weekends, and holidays. Parenthood turns out to be an important factor as well. Fathers were more likely than childless men to want the extra cash from overtime, and mothers were more likely to want the time off than childless women. In other words, the difference in male and female earnings at the MBTA was explained by those so-called women's choices, which Hartman and Rose so easily dismissed. The gap of 89 cents in our setting, the authors concluded, can be explained entirely by the fact that while having the same choice sets in the workplace, women and men make different choices. That's the conclusion of the Harvard study, okay? So it's important to understand that the gender pay gap is not real, okay? Not this mythical 77 cents to the dollar or whatever, okay? Gender pay laws. And just so anybody watching understands, there's the Equal Pay Act of 1963, all right? It amends the Fair Labor Standards Act, and it's aimed at abolishing wage disparity based on sex, all right? Meaning that you can't pay someone less based on their gender. You can see here, 20 years later, legislation passed by the federal government in 1963, Equal Pay Act, made it illegal to pay men and women different wage rates for equal work on jobs that require equal skill, effort, and responsibility and are performed under similar working conditions. And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen, the gender pay gap dismantled in 11 minutes, 55 seconds. Everybody watching, thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of your days, and don't fall prey to the mass media trying to just throw random stuff at you. Look into it yourself. As you can probably tell from this episode and maybe some past episodes, not everything is exactly as you hear it. Signing off. Peace.